Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we are doing something that's a little different than what I usually do. This is usually my vlogging channel, but I have done horror stories in the past. Today we are going to be starting a whole new series that is called Horror History by Cinnamon Babe, and basically I will be talking about like creepy and scary things that have happened in the past and popular events, I will say. So if you're new, please like and subscribe, and please enjoy today's video. So today we're going to be talking about cereal and its creepy origins. So when you think about cereal, you probably think about your favorite bowl of cereal with cartoons on the box. But you probably don't think about a torture chamber wellness center that was ran by this maniac, who was obsessed with Corn Flakes, pooping, and celibacy. So today we are jumping headfirst down the rabbit hole and discussing John Harvey Kellogg and the origins of cereal. Once upon a time, in 1866, there was a lavish health spa built in the heart of Battle Creek, Michigan, and it was ran by a man named Dr. John Harvey Kellogg. So Dr. John Harvey Kellogg, which we'll just call him John, was a health guru of the time, and he's the one who pretty much started the whole health and wellness movement. He was a devoted Seventh-day Adventist, and he believed in health and wellness based on Christian Science. Dr. John was obsessed with perfection, and he believed in the human body's ability to reach perfection through health and wellness. Dr. John was born February 26, 1852, in Tyrone, Michigan. His parents were John Preston Kellogg and Ann Jeanette Kellogg. Dr. John was one of 16 children. His younger brother, William Keith Kellogg, was one of them. So in 1855, the Kellogg family moved to Battle Creek, Michigan, along with some of their church members from the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And that church believed in the final days being near. And so the Kellogg family didn't believe it was necessary to highly educate their children or involve them in school. Dr. John's father worked his children to the bone. He owned a broom factory. At the young age of 11, John would go to work at his father's broom factory. It was 10-hour shifts for $2 a day. But John's parents quickly noticed that little John was gifted, and they enrolled him in grammar school. But John was a sickly young child. In fact, 6 of his siblings had passed and didn't make it to adulthood. And he ended up developing bloody colitis, which scarred his colon and led to constipation and hemorrhoids. He ended up getting anal fissure. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'll just put it up on the screen. And that ended up leading to extremely painful bowel movements. So just keep in mind that this is something that he was dealing with throughout his childhood, and this really shaped who he became as an adult. So as he was growing into an adult, John became fixated and obsessed with health and hygiene and having a clean diet. He wanted to enrich his diet with bowel-friendly foods that would lead to softer stools because, like I said, he experienced extremely painful bowel movements. So he wanted to make it a lot easier on himself by changing his diet completely. So John began to study Sylvester Graham, and that is the inventor of the graham cracker, and he also was an extremely religious man. He believed that eating a vegetarian diet could literally solve all the world's problems, whether it was health or just social issues like war. And he also believed that having a vegetarian diet like the graham cracker would also prevent you from masturbating, which was believed to be like the worst sin ever. He even believed that eating a vegetarian diet and just eating healthier in general could end poverty. Okay. Being raised in such a strict religious household, John became very adverse towards sex and sexuality in general. He wanted nothing to do with it. He thought it was disgusting and sinful. And so he believed, like Graham, like Sylvester Graham. He believed that, you know, if he changed his diet and eliminated caffeine, alcohol, and seasoned and sweetened foods, that he could just eliminate the urge to even want it. He believed that a bland diet would create a more wholesome young man out of him and anyone else who followed that diet. So a couple members from John's church started a health and wellness center called the Western Health Reform Institute, and they really believed that John would be a great fit to be the doctor that ran the institution. So they urged him to go to medical school and become a doctor. So in 1872, John took a 6-month course, and he graduated from the course, and he was given a medical degree right there and then. But even John knew that that was like not going to work, and he needed way more study to become an official doctor. It's just crazy that back then, like, you could do that. Like, I feel like almost anybody could have been successful if they like were able to like invest in certain things like that. Like, you literally could become a doctor after a 6-month training, and people would believe that you were a doctor. But even John knew that that was not going to work. So he wanted to become an official doctor. So in 1873, John enrolled in the University of Michigan. And then in 1874, he transferred to Bellevue Hospital Medical College. And there he would receive like more hands-on training. So during this time, this is when John's diet became more bizarre. Every day he would eat 7 graham crackers and 2 apples, 1 coconut a week with the occasional serving of oatmeal. Mind you, like, yes, you do hear fruit, but you do not hear any vegetables a part of the diet. And I do not understand why back then vegetables and stuff were not like really pushed to eat. Like, it seemed like wheats and grains were more important to them back then. And it's weird. So John did end up embellishing his residency a little bit, but he was able to ultimately graduate medical school and become an official doctor with a trusted medical degree. He became Dr. John H. Kellogg. So in October 1st, 1876, Dr. John officially became the head doctor and the head doctor and director of the former Western Health Reform Institute, and he renamed it to the Battle Creek Sanitarium. And the word sanitarium is something that he completely made up. It comes from the word sanatorium. He didn't like the word reformed. Instead, he said he wanted patients to feel informed in a health and wellness resort. This place ended up also being referred to as the San, which sounds like it's going to have a lot of scandals, and it is. So the San ended up becoming a huge hit in Battle Creek, and Battle Creek, Michigan became like the epicenter of health and wellness. And with that, huge names began to fly in from all over to visit the San. And some of these names are Sojourner Truth, which there's a statue downtown of her, Amelia Earhart, and John and her also became friends, and she also would fly him around on her plane, which is crazy and very interesting. And I also forgot to mention that Battle Creek is my hometown, born and raised here. And it's just so crazy to just hear like such a crazy story about this, but I forgot to mention that. Henry Ford, which he's the founder and creator and inventor of the automobile. We all know his name, and that started in Michigan as well. Thomas Edison, and a lot of the different devices in the Battle Creek Sanitarium that John invented involved a lot of like light bulbs and stuff. And so it's just crazy that the inventor of light bulbs came to receive treatment with things that like literally with the light bulb. And then Eleanor Roosevelt, and that's just some of the names. There's like even more like big names that ended up flying into Battle Creek. It's just really crazy. So the price to stay at the San was about $10 to $20 a week, which would be $300 to $600 a week in today's money. So Dr. John focused on health conditions like dyspepsia and neurasthenia, which are very vague health conditions that involve headaches, fatigue, irritability, and of course constipation, and also diarrhea. So if you were a patient with serious medical issues, Dr. John would turn you away. It's like, nope, I'm only here to like do like weird things to people that have like vague conditions. Ultimately, the Battle Creek San was for health nuts looking to feel better. through health and wellness. And we're about to discuss what those health and wellness treatments were. And they're very disturbing. So over the years, the Battle Creek Sand expanded and it appeared to be like a grand hotel. Like, this was very lavish and it was very attracting to the upper class. Dr. John would do health seminars which involved bio-living, and this included fresh air running and what is today called laugh yoga.
Very happy. Always happy.
So Dr. John was a extreme inventor, and he invented a lot of things that are still used today. Things like the vibrating chair, a mechanical camel that inspired the mechanical bull, but he used it for like medical reasons. Slapping machines, and you know, the weight loss belt from the 80s, he invented that, and it was supposed to, like, I guess, like stimulate your digestion. Light therapy machines, which is a bunch of light bulbs in a machine and you just lay in it and it does absolutely nothing. Water and electricity baths, which that sounds extremely safe. The electric blanket, and not just to keep you warm like if you're sick. It was like he believed in like the heat and like light source is supposed to help with ultimate wellness. I don't know, but I'm glad that he invented that because that's pretty cool. And also an electric cage that you're supposed to stand in. I don't really know what it was supposed to do, but it doesn't sound safe at all. In February 22nd, 1879, Dr. John got married, which is shocking, to a woman named Ella Eaton. And the two would never consummate their marriage. In fact, during their honeymoon, Dr. John spent his time revising his books that taught against sex, which is very ironic. And one of the books was called Plain Facts for the Old and Young. Dr. John believed that sex was extremely dangerous and exhausting because you're literally straining yourself and losing fluids. Yeah, he said that. And it's crazy because he comes from such a big family. Dr. John's father had literally got married twice, and he had a bunch of children from each woman. So yes, Dr. John found sex to be disgusting and unhealthy, and he thought it would make you dumber. And he had a particular disdain for masturbation. He believed that it led to death and blindness, and he believed it also led to insanity. It's just hard to believe that he actually believed that. Like, did you really believe that, or were you just such a prude you wanted to scare the public? I don't know. So now we're getting to the good part, and these are some of the extreme and very creepy treatments. Some of these treatments were extremely painful and very bizarre, and they were used to counteract sex and masturbation. Treatments like circumcision, particularly and unfortunately on little boys, chemical and surgical removal of the clitoris, and that was particularly done on little girls. Hand restraints, chastity belts, even would sew uncircumcised penis skin, like he would sew it up to prevent any type of sexual stimulation. And he believed that these painful treatments would basically cause the mind to not even want it anymore because it would be associated with such pain. And especially the fact that he did it to young children, basically disfiguring them sexually for life. So me personally, I believe that particularly for men, not so much for women because we're different, but I believe that it is unhealthy for men to be lifelong celibate, to where it doesn't even lead to them getting into a healthy sexual relationship. I believe that it's actually unhealthy. And so I believe that men that choose to be celibate for the rest of their life end up becoming freaks. And I believe that this is true for Dr. John. It is believed that Dr. John, even though he was celibate, he ended up becoming a clismophiliac, which is the first time I have ever heard that word. And what that is a person who it gets sexually aroused from enemas. The guy was obsessed with enemas and pooping. Like, this was his life's work and passion. So, like I said, Dr. John was a huge inventor. He ended up inventing an enema machine that pumped 15 quarts of water per minute. If you don't know what an enema is, it's basically the act of pumping water into the body from your butt to basically help with digestion. And no normal enema would pump 15 quarts of water. So basically, upon starting up the machine, you would have to instantly shut it off because it could kill you. It was extremely dangerous. And I don't even want to know what would happen if you kept that machine running for like a minute or longer. I don't even want to know what would happen. So one day, Dr. John ended up going to the zoo, and he became fixated on the gorillas. And the reason why was because the gorilla has a constant digestive tract where they are constantly pooping throughout the day. And Dr. John became envious of that, and he believed that human beings should poop throughout the day constantly. So he just randomly came up with the number that human beings should poop 4 to 5 times a day, which sounds very unpleasant. So, along with his very dangerous and horrifying enema machine, Dr. John came up with a new enema treatment, which was called the yogurt enema. And what that was pumping a bunch of yogurt into the body to help with healthy bacteria. Dr. John also believed, like I said, he didn't believe in like foods that were seasoned or with a lot of sugar. He believed that you shouldn't have any like sugar in your diet or any caffeine, alcohol, nothing like that. And so he taught that you should chew your very bland and very hard and tough food for at least 40 times to liquefy it in the mouth. That way when you swallow it, it will digest easier. He even made a song for like the patients to sing, and I don't really know how they sung and chewed extremely tough food, and it was like chew, 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 that is the thing to do, which sounds creepy. Dr. John believed that your poop should be very large, at least the size of a child, like a newborn baby, and it should be stench free. And he led by example, and it was told that he would also show patients his poop at like seminars and stuff, which is also extremely unpleasant. So here's where Will Keith Kellogg comes into play. And he is also known as W.K. Kellogg, and he is the more popular brother, and you will see why. So Dr. John, he ended up hiring his younger brother, Will, to become his assistant at the Battle Creek Sand. And he treated him very poorly. And even throughout their childhood, he was very abusive to Will. He would use his back as like feet warmers. And he would even beat Will as a child, like as if he was his father. And he just pretty much used Will as his footstool. And so he ended up hiring Will as his assistant and just treated him like he was his dim assistant. So William Keith Kellogg was born April 7th, 1860. And he pretty much was treated as the black sheep of the family. And his parents just believed that he was dumb. And the reason why is because Will couldn't read and he couldn't recognize faces. So at the age of 20, Will ended up discovering that he just needed glasses and that he wasn't dumb, he just couldn't see. He was just farsighted, and it's sad because as a child he had to also work in the broom factory, and just imagine doing that not being able to see. And the poor thing was only 6 years old working in that factory. Will ended up graduating Parsons Business College May 16th, 1880. He then worked for his brother John at the Sand, and I guess both Will and John had a wife named Ella in 1880. And unlike his brother, he believed in just, being a normal adult and consummating your marriage, and he went on to have 5 children. Unfortunately, 3 of them passed away. So if you were to visit the Sand back in that day, you would probably see Dr. John all dressed in white riding on a bicycle while his brother Will chased behind him with a pen and pad while Dr. John rambled on about things he believed was to be notable. And he also could be seen with a bird sitting on his shoulder. Dr. John only paid his brother Will $9 a week. It was about $200 a week, which still is not nothing. He would work 80-hour shifts, and like I said, being treated like a dim-witted assistant. Dr. John would also have Will stand in the bathroom with him as he pooped, because like I said, obsessed with pooping, and I guess he wanted an audience and also wanted to have Will take notes of whatever, which also sounds extremely unpleasant. Will ran many of Dr. John's companies, and this also included the sanitarium food factories. Dr. John, like I said, believed in bland food, and he also was a food inventor, so he would create very bland foods to serve to his patients at the SAN. One particular food was dough that was, I believe it was corn dough, baked at extreme high temperatures more than once, and then broken up into little flakes. And it was packaged, and it would be served at the SAN, and it ended up becoming a huge hit at the wellness center. The flakes were extremely hard, and it even broke a woman's tooth. With the popularity of the flakes growing, Will believed that they should serve the product at grocery stores and sell it there to the general public for people who were interested in health and wellness as well. So the two brothers created a experimental health kitchen where they could invent different foods in 1883. So there, Will was in charge of creating different foods. It is believed that Dr. John had a hand in inventing peanut butter. And unfortunately, Dr. John had a habit of taking people's credit for different inventions. And so it's kind of hard to believe if he's the one who invented it, because he would take the credit for his brother's work, Will's work. And like I said, Will was in charge of inventing different foods at the experimental kitchen. But Dr. John would take solely the credit of doing it. Together, the brothers invented many different health food phenomenons that are still popular today. And some of those being plant-based milks and meats, which is crazy because, like, I'm sure it was disgusting back then, but that was not really Dr. John's goal. He didn't really have a goal to make it taste good. It was all about the health and wellness. But it's crazy to believe that there was actual plant-based meat back in the 1800s. So the broken up flakes that they would create out of the corn dough, they ended up calling it granola, which was taken from another company that had made a similar product, and Dr. John ended up getting in trouble, and so that's why he ended up naming it granola. And competition was at an all-time rise. So in February 1891, Charles W. Post was admitted in the Battle Creek SAN for indigestion, but Post couldn't afford the weekly bill at the SAN, and so to supplement the payments, he ended up taking a job at the experimental kitchen with Will and John. And there, Charles Post would steal a lot of the ideas that the Kellogg brothers were coming up with because he was working there. January 1st, 1895, Charles opened up his own factory and started selling cereal there, and he called it Postum Cereal Company. He became a direct competitor of the Kellogg brothers, selling blatant stolen product ideas. He would make cereal, coffee substitutes like the Kellogg's did, and then he would make the flakes but called it grape nuts. And it was just an ultimate copy of the granola. Because of this, the Kellogg brothers kept a lifelong resentment towards Charles. So Will kept experimenting. He didn't like that the granola didn't have any flavor and it was so tough. So he just kept experimenting with different doughs. And then one day he left out corn to dry, and it was by total accident. And when he came back to the kitchen, he saw that the corn was completely dried out and that he could flatten it and it would create the perfect individual flake. And that is when 1898 Corn Flakes was introduced into the world, and it would sell out 60 tons by the first year. By 1905, along with Charles, a bunch of copycat companies began to pop up all over Battle Creek. And because of hundreds of cereal companies around Battle Creek became the cereal city. So Will, he understood food a lot better than his brother John. And he believed if you added sugar and malt, that it would make the cereal taste a lot better. And also, sugar was a preservative, so the shelf life would last longer in the grocery stores. He presented this idea to his brother John, Dr. John, but Dr. John was not having it because he did not believe in sugar or any additives. Will resigned to focus on building his own cereal brand based off the corn flakes that he invented. Dr. John began to face financial difficulty, and so he ended up selling the patent to Will for $22,000. Is $700,000 today. So Will started to become very successful. Will was also a master marketer, and he was able to really grow the business. He changed the name to Kellogg Corn Flakes, and he ended up adding his signature, which became the most popular signature next to Disney. So John became like irritated and jealous, and so he ended up renaming his cereal product in 1908 Cereal Kellogg Food Company of Battle Creek, and he became Will's direct competitor, which would confuse the customer because one cereal tastes really good because it has like the added sugar and it's just made better, and the other one was completely hard and bland. So because both products had the word Kellogg or the last name Kellogg in it, that was extremely confusing, and it was also damaging to Will's brand. So in 1910, Will sued his brother, and this lawsuit would carry on for a while before it was able to close, and Dr. John tried to countersue and make it seem like, oh, I'm the popular doctor, and, I'm the one who started the whole cereal, factory thing, and blah, blah, blah. So ultimately, after like 7 years or almost 10 years, Will ended up winning the lawsuit, and his brother, Dr. John, had to pay all his past profits to Will. So without William's help in making like, different inventions with like the food and stuff, and like there started to be a decline in patients at the sand, Dr. John ended up selling the sand and turning his attentions elsewhere. And this is when it gets even darker. Dr. John started the Race Betterment Campaign. And basically what that was is to decrease the reproduction of different races other than white people. He also started campaigns to stop immigration. So Dr. John, even though they never had children of their own, they adopted 42 children. And instead of just being loving parents to them, it was solely for the purpose of experimental parenting styles and race betterment experiments. So the sanitarium building burnt down, and it turned into a military hospital after it was sold, and today it is the Battle Creek Federal Center. A key note is that Dr. John had a hand in sterilizing 60,000 indigenous women and black women. So Dr. John and his brother Will became estranged after the lawsuit. Will ended up becoming a successful home name, with his cereal products stretching worldwide and different buildings and things being named after him. And John became, the less notable brother. Dr. John passed away December 14th, 1943. Him and Will never really spoke again, but he did write his brother a letter of an apology, apologizing for his treatment and different things he had done to him. But his assistant never delivered the letter to Will, and I guess Will didn't end up hearing about it until he was on his deathbed. Will passed away October 6, 1951. And they both died at the age of 91, which is interesting. It's crazy because Charles Post, he ended up passing away before both Dr. John and Will, and it was from suicide, May 9th, 1914. And it is believed that Charles suffered from extreme anxiety, like he was always anxious and he made bad decisions with money. So he at the time, he believed that he had stomach cancer, even though he had received an examination and they said that he didn't have it. So he just drove himself completely crazy and ended up committing suicide by gunshot. Charles Post's daughter, Marjorie, she ended up inheriting her father's fortune and company, and she became a huge success. She was a fashionista. She was a worldwide philanthropist. She is the original owner of Mar-a-Lago, is in Palm Beach, and Donald Trump is the current owner. And I never knew anything like this as long as I have lived in this town. Like I said, W.K. Kellogg, Will, like I said, his company is a household name. It's the #1 cereal. And their company is the first company to add toys and surprises in the cereal box. Will also had a grandson that committed suicide later on in the years because Will did not give him the inheritance because he was drinking, he was not doing right. And so his grandson or his father, his son, did not end up receiving the company. And I also want to mention that I have grandparents, my grandmother and my grandfather on my dad's side. They both worked at Kellogg's and Post back in the day, which is so interesting because it's like, oh my God. And I still have family that work at Post today. I also have a friend that works at the Federal Center, which was originally the Battle Creek Sand. So yeah, there's just so much like current like history, like it's crazy. So there you have it. John and Will revolutionized breakfast and created cereal, and now breakfast is looked at the most important meal of the day because of them. So yep, this is the location where a lot of Dr. John Kellogg's weird experiments went on and a lot of his inventions, and also where the birth of Corn Flakes was invented. This is the W.K. Kellogg Auditorium, and it's attached to the middle school that is now closed. It was named after Will. Okay, so now we're at Lanier Park, and this is where W.K. Kellogg's house was relocated. I don't know the original location, but I believe it was relocated in the 80s. So follow me. Either way, if you look over there, that's the Kellogg Foundation. Yep, really pretty, and I think it's like either Japanese or Chinese themed.
Okay, I'm gonna go grab it.
Really pretty. We've taken like family pictures and stuff here, but here in Battle Creek, a lot of like buildings are named after Will.
She's here.
Now I want to take a picture.
Oh, this is the Oak Hill Cemetery. It's closed right now. They close at 4, unfortunately. Technically, I could go in there because it's an opening, but I'm not going to do that. But that's where Charles Post and John and Will Kellogg are buried. So the next time you walk down the breakfast aisle to pick out your favorite cereal, just remember you are putting a box of creepy history in your cart. So yes, I hope you enjoyed today's story. It's very personal to me because like I said, it's my hometown. I have friends and family that have worked for all the companies that have been listed today. The way I heard about this story, I watched Bailey Sarian's story that she had just posted on her channel, and I was shocked. I was like, I have never heard any of this, and I just had to do a story on it because like I said, it's my hometown. So yes, I hope you enjoy. Let me know if you have any comments or anything you want to add in the comments down below. Sweet dreams. Don't forget to like and subscribe.